Hey everyone, I am here with Ron Placone, who is a co-host on The Jimmy Dore Show, Establishment Exiles, and Five Chords in the Truth, and he is here to bring in the new year. Is it ring in or bring in?
I
I,
think it's ring,
I think
but
it is
I
ring
could be
in.
wrong.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
I
say
think it,
ring in, but then I questioned it.
it's like
Like,
it's like you're calling the year and you're like, "Hey, we doing this?" And the year's like, "Yeah."
okay,
And then and then that's how the year goes.
totally. So we'll say ring in, but if we are wrong, then feel free to roast us or roast me specifically in the comment section. And we just, heads up, we just recorded a really wonderful, show. It was what, like 48 minutes long, and the whole time I did not have my audio turned on. So yeah, this is our
It's
second
it's a, it's
attempt.
it's a case of the Mondays, man. You just got off the holiday recess and you're like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like getting back on the bike.
Getting back into the swing of things is really difficult. And I'm complaining when my job is to talk. But hell, it is difficult sometimes, especially when you are operating technology that you don't understand or know how to use. So for me, I'm not good with the computer.
Yeah.
I've got to get
You
my
and I both. You and I
yeah.
both.
I've got to get my grandson to help me out with it. Maybe. No, I'm not a
I'm
grandfather.
just I'm just waiting for the day where the budget can fit in an assistant. That's the day I'm waiting
Where
for.
somebody just does it for me and I don't have to worry about
Yeah.
it because I don't know what I'm doing. So, what the purpose of this chat was, Ron and I wanted to get together to kind of talk about, or briefly reflect on 2017 and also ring in 2018 the right way. And so, of course, after I was finished recording, for the end of 2017, I had a lot of videos auto post each day to my channel. But there was a lot of things that happened after we turned off the cameras that we didn't get a chance to address. So, of course, Erica Garner passed away. She was Eric Garner's daughter, as you all know. And this was really, really difficult for a lot of us. And it's still very difficult because she is an individual that's just invaluable to our movement. I don't think we can ever overstate how much she meant to us and how important her voice was um, to this progressive cause and to the cause of criminal justice reform in the U.S. So of course we can't not start the video off by mentioning her and acknowledging her. And also another thing that happened that was pretty crazy was that throughout the course of winter break, the news outlet The Wrap published an article about Cenk Uygur, basically unearthing some old blog posts that he wrote back in 1999, 2000, and they were sexist and chauvinistic. And they were despicable. Nobody can deny that. Nobody is denying that. But that prompted Justice Democrats to then ask for his resignation. And he did resign, and then Kyle Kulinski resigned as well. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that, Ron. And
Sure.
because, yeah, I
Uh,
don't agree with their decision to ask for his resignation because I do think people are capable of changing.
yeah. Well, I'll start with the first thing and then move on to the second. So Erica Garner, um, yeah, I mean that was heavy. And there's that old phrase. It's like some people they didn't have a lot of years to their life, unfortunately, but they had a lot of life in their years.
Right.
And she was only 27 years old. She certainly had a ton of life in those years. I know she was working on a book. I really hope that somehow they're able to get that out there
Me too.
for a number of reasons. I hope that, I mean, I don't know. I heard she was like three-quarters of the way through, but what that actually means, I have no idea.
Right.
But I hope somehow they can, finish that for her, or somehow they're able to get that out there. Because I think that'd be phenomenal. And
Yeah.
it is very disturbing that the systemic disease in law enforcement still has not been addressed.
Hmm.
But I think the movement is strong, and I really have confidence that someday it will. But it's we do live in this gross world where what happened to Eric Garner happened, and people openly mocked it. This is her father. People openly mocked his dying words. I can't breathe.
Hmm.
And there were no consequences for those responsible for his death. And it's because we have a very systemic disease in law enforcement. It's because the way we recruit, the way we train, the way we screen, it's very clearly broken beyond repair. And activism like hers was that much more important because of this. And I hope that the movement continues to go, and that hopefully we'll get a more long-term solution to prevent something like this, like an Eric Garner, from happening again. And unfortunately, we're a long way off from that.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think it's impossible. Cenk Uygur. So I did not read the blog posts.
Me too. I
Admittedly,
didn't.
just to put it out there, I didn't read them. But one thing I always knew about Cenk, and this is years before I was part of Young Turks Network, years before I worked for Jimmy, before any of that stuff, when I was just a kid in college that knew who the Young Turks were, that was always part of his story, that he used to be some diehard pro-war right-wing Republican. Now, I'm not saying that just because you're a Republican that gives you a pass to be sexist. That's not what I'm implying at all.
Right.
But what I am implying is that people evolve and people change, and this is a guy that is very clear that he had an evolution at a later, not necessarily a later stage of his life, but as an adult. He had an evolution and a personal kind of 180, and really saw things differently. And for him, the pivotal moment was 9/11, and because he was like, "What the hell are you doing? Saddam didn't do this. Iraq's not responsible here. What are you doing?" And I can relate to that, because for me, I was kind of an apathetic teenager until around 2003 or so. And it's not like I wasn't paying attention to politics at all, but I was not paying very much attention. I kind of just didn't really care. And then all of a sudden, people that I knew and family members were going off to Iraq to fight this war, and I didn't know why the hell we were there. And I woke up, and I started becoming way more politically engaged, and I started to really despise the Bush administration.
Yeah.
And so it's like people evolve, and they have personal evolutions at all kinds of ages and all kinds of stages in life, and everybody always knew that he had one. So and again, I'm not saying that means that a conservative person, they're allowed to be sexist. We expect that. I'm saying. Well, what I'm saying is this part of his evolution, and when you're kind of stigmatizing a person by kind of being like, oh, well, look at this, you have to face consequences now, you're almost kind of having this underlying message of, well, you can't change.
Right.
And I don't think that's a good message to have towards humanity.
No.
I think that people can change and they can evolve. And I think in the case of Justice Democrats, I mean, they have a very long road ahead of them. This is not, I mean, the DNC, they don't want these progressives involved. That's why, we did a video over on the Jimmy Dore show of these new rules that they came out with, where it's like they basically try to discourage any type of primarying. The people that still have the power in the Democratic Party, the establishment, corporate apologists, which, by the way, that's one of my New Year's resolution. I no longer use the word corporate Democrats, because I feel like if you use the word corporate Democrats, you're making it seem like that's an option. And I don't think you can be corporate and be a Democrat. You're one or the other. You're not both.
Right.
So, and I'm not going to use that anymore. I'm also not going to use the term neoliberal, because a lot of people in the contemporary United States, a lot of people think that just means new liberal. You and I both know that's not what it means. The neoliberal refers to the market, so it actually refers to deregulation as it exists as a term. But I think sometimes that gets confused, especially since the neoliberal term can be put on a lot of Democrats. So I'm trying to not use that phrase in describing folks as well. So I use the word corporate apologist or Starbucks conservative. So
I like that.
That's what I'm using going forward. So the corporate apologists, they really do not want. They really don't want that change. I mean, they've already screwed the Justice Democrats out of data that they're entitled to. So that's already happening. So to kind of, get rid of several big figureheads that could really help, like a Cenk Uygur and a Kyle Kalinske. I don't know if that's the smartest move in the world.
Yeah, it's like shooting yourself in the foot.
I think it's safe to say it's not. Yeah, very much so. And 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 I think you and I are totally on the same page with this because we did a recording several minutes ago where it was clear we were, but
we see into the future, Ron.
Yeah, right.
Or
But
the past.
I'm for causes and policy positions more than I am for whatever lane you're participating in to try to get elected.
Absolutely.
I mean, so whether you're a Justice Democrat, and that's something important to take away, maybe you are really discouraged by what the Justice Democrats are doing, and that's understandable. Don't take that out on some of the brilliant candidates that have benefited from resources. And, because I don't care whether you're a Justice Democrat, whether you're an independent, whether you're a Green Party, whether you're a DSA. If you're for the causes I'm for, I can be for you and I can give you a vote. If you're not, well, then I'm not going to give you my vote. I'm not going to give you my support. It's that simple. Look at someone like a Sam Ronan. He's going he's infiltrating the Republican Party.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's an important thing to take forward with our movement in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
That, we are a movement of causes. We are a movement of social change and a kind of, in the thought sense, revolution.
Right.
A revolution in the economic and thought sense is what we're going after. And you don't accomplish something like that just by showing up at a ballot box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's part of it, sure, but that's not all there is.
Right.
Nor do you get to that point by just saying that the status quo is okay. We didn't get the EPA because a Democrat waved a magic wand and said it was okay. We got the EPA because environmentalists demanded it, and the social movement demanded it. Now, the EPA is kind of in really bad shape right now.
Right.
Different story for a different day. But you get the principle. And another soundboard is going. We're going to lose all four before we're done. The goal is that all four will fall.
I kind of want them all to fall.
I feel like it's the only... You know what? Like, we'll end it with, like, me slamming, and then they'll all fall. And then I'll be like, all right, support independent media. You know what? Do you want to fix this problem? Patreon.com/Ron Placone. You can fix this.
That is perfect. And as your soundboard is falling off, my dog is wrestling with my cat right by me. So this is what independent media is about. This is this is the glory of it. No, but I think that you made a really crucial point about basically not demonizing the candidates for the actions of the organization as a whole. Because I've personally, I won't name names, but I've had Justice Democrats reach out to me saying that they're so frustrated with the situation and they disagree with the decision that Justice Democrats made and asking for Cenk's resignation. So I think that that's really important. These are candidates that aren't just Justice Democrats. They're running in conjunction with brand new Congress. They're endorsed by our revolution. These are people, and you can't just attach that organization to their names and demonize them in the event you do disagree with the organization, which I think is important. Now, getting back to the topic of evolving and changing, what I'm worried about in basically not accepting people when they change, not taking yes for an answer. You just lost another one. In not accepting change, I feel like you're discouraging people who have said things that they were embarrassed about from speaking out. So, I mean, if we all have things that we're embarrassed about. I've done things that make me cringe. I've watched the home videos with, seeing myself with frosted tips. We all change as people. We all evolve. And look, this is why I think that people changing is really important. So when I came out to my dad about 7 years ago, he said, well, I still love you and accept you, but I disagree with this. I don't ever want to hear or see anything about this. I don't want to ever, see you bring a guy to the house. That's just wrong, in my opinion. And that was 7 years ago. But just this last Christmas, when we left for Christmas dinner, he gave my husband a hug, gave him a kiss on the cheek, and said he loves him. So people can change, and if you hold that against someone and say, well, you're a bad person because of what you said in the past, even if you're a completely different person now, I don't think that's very progressive. I think that's regressive. I think that you have to understand that in the process of trying to change hearts and minds, we don't discourage people because, people, if you have really disgusting views and you're able to reform those views, then that's good. That's something we should celebrate.
Yeah.
And not demonize people who, who do change and come on the right side of the issue. So I do think that is something that has to be said. And another thing that really bothered me, which I think is dangerous, honestly, is that there were some journalists online, I won't name names, who were suggesting that Cenk still holds these views and still might be sexist because he interviewed a porn star, for example. But that, I mean, we're really getting to the point where, like, as Benjamin Dixon states it, we're going to start purifying ourselves into oblivion. And I'm not talking about purity tests in the sense that neoliberals say, oh, well, you want all these policies. I'm talking about basically holding each person up to a moral test and saying they don't align with what I think is right, morally speaking. So if you say, oh, well, this person watches porn, so they're sexist, well, congratulations, you just alienated 99.9% of the American population. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that too, what you're referring to, and I was very confused by it.
Yeah.
My response was, what's your point? I mean,
Mine
you
too.
know, the Young Turks have always done pop culture type stuff. They've always done cultural stuff. They have a channel dedicated to interviews.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's your point? Are you saying that just because somebody works in pornography, they don't deserve to be interviewed? They don't deserve a voice?
Yeah.
That's not progressive at all, by the way. That is very not. That's the opposite of progressive. That's
Right.
actually the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah, we're getting into
you know,
evangelical territory, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, you totally are. You know, I mean, that's so. Yeah, I mean, my response to that when I saw it was like, what are you talking about? So what?
Yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like that was just, yeah.
And
I didn't understand that. You know, like I just
Right.
didn't understand why that was a point one way or another. Now, I mean, if he was having this thing where it was supposed to be just a regular TYT news and politics show, and he has this Howard Stern moment where he's just like, hang on, describe your boobs, and he has like porn stars there for no reason, and then that's different. Then it's like, I don't know what you're doing, but you just turn this into a morning zoo or whatever. But no, it was an interview. Like just because of what somebody does, you're saying that they aren't worth an interview. I mean, that's, yeah, I was confused by that point. I guess.
And just for argument's sake, the argument that people who think Cenk is sexist or anyone who watches porn is sexist, what they said was, well, if you support this, if you talk about porn, you're propping up an industry that exploits women, that, you know, they begrudgingly join the porn industry because they can't make it. But I mean, if we're really going to demonize people, yeah, well, think about this. I buy if I buy a shirt from Walmart for $5, you know, it's cheap because they imported it from a country that doesn't have any, you know, labor standards or anything like that. So every single industry is exploitative. You know, when you live in a country that is as capitalist as ours is, you know, you have to change the system. You can't demonize individuals. And as progressives, you have to be, I mean, I think part of being progressive is being sex positive and saying that as long as consenting adults are consenting, then it's perfectly fine. So it's basically getting back to the point, in demonizing Cenk and suggesting that he is not progressive because he interviewed a porn star, or you know, he talks about porn every now and then. I think that is bad for the movement because you're getting away from policy and you're getting into personality when we want people on our side who agree with us politically.
Well, and to blanket an entire industry, I mean, you know, you're kind of also treading on a slippery slope. I mean, there are some institutions in the porn industry that were kind of self-started by the folks involved themselves, kind of, you know, so to cast that blanket over an entire industry and then say, well, everyone there is doesn't want to be there and they're all being exploited and this, I mean, you can't make a statement like that. That's way too broad of a brushstroke, way too broad of a generalization. And you know, I think if that's something people want to do and they're all consenting adults, like you said, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, the whole thing of we're now going to kind of wag our fingers at anybody, you know, involved in the pornography industry. Yeah, I mean, that really just totally dilutes the conversation. It's kind of like, what the hell are you talking about? This is what the religious right used to do.
Exactly.
Still does, but used to do it way more.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and the point is not to, like, you know, we're not trying to get dragged down into the weeds of things, or, you know, we basically, the goal here is to win, and you don't win when you basically tell someone that they need to resign from your movement when they have a viewer base of 3 million people who is the marketing wing of your organization. So, the overall point, again, is not to demonize the candidates for the sins of the organization, but Justice Democrats as an organization, they need to come together and really understand that if they really want to win, they have to make some changes publicly. And they need to make sure that they're not alienating people unnecessarily and making hasty decisions that in the end hurt not just themselves, but the candidates. I mean, I don't want this to hurt the candidates, but some people may be turned off to anyone who's just a Justice Democrat, which is not, I hope that that's not the case. Because again, great candidates. I watched an interview that Jimmy Dore did with Allison Hartson. I was blown away. She was amazing.
She's a very and she's an educator, and she is very intelligent. She's very charismatic. She lays it out the right way. She is she's exactly what California needs.
Yeah, she's the exact progressive that we need in this country to get elected to the Senate. Because she'd be fighting for everyone. But I don't want to focus on just the negative things for 2017. I think that the overall point in me and Ron coming together here is to basically talk about the path forward for progressives in 2018. And, I think that there are reasons to be optimistic. You were talking about this in our now deleted interview.
The episode that never was.
And it was so good,
a little episode that could.
It was so good, too. I think, personally, even if 2017 overall politically was bad, a lot of the negative things that happened, the things that Trump did, the repeal of net neutrality, these can all be undone. They can be overturned. And I think that we have to look at the big picture, right?
Oh, yeah.
We need to see that, even if on a month basis or year by year basis, things seem bad, we're getting back to the point, I think, of this collective class consciousness like we saw back in the New Deal era, where people are coming together, and it doesn't matter what their party affiliation is, but they, one example you brought up before was Bernie Sanders did a town hall with a room full of Trump supporters in West Virginia. I mean, that's a sign that our society is changing, and it didn't happen with Obama. Some people thought it would happen with Trump. It didn't. So I think we're getting to that point where the floodgates are going to burst open, and we're going to see a new wave of progressivism. So I don't know. I think that there's reasons to be optimistic in spite of basically 2017 ending in a really shitty way. What do you think?
No, I'm totally with you. I mean, Obama, in a country as racist as the United States of America is, a black guy with a Muslim name won in a landslide when he ran on a progressive platform.
Right.
And for 8 years, he didn't deliver on that progressive platform. So then a guy came along, man, they're kind of disenfranchised with the Democrats now. This guy comes along who is kind of a crazy talker. It's just kind of a weird, bizarre guy. Promises this thing called Republican populism. Well, the Democrats didn't give us populism, so maybe the Republicans will. Well, guess what? That's an oxymoron in and of itself, Republican populism. Yeah. So that was a snake oil lie that Donald Trump sold. And now people are realizing, okay, that's not going to happen. This guy is just looking out for the corporatocracy too. People are hungry for someone that's not going to look out for the corporatocracy, but instead is going to look out for them. Mm-hmm. So I think for progressives to move forward, we need to understand we are a movement of social change and social movements. We're a movement of causes. We're a movement of Medicare for all. We're a movement of living wages. We're a movement of free college. We're a movement of ending the wars, of ending the military-industrial complex, of investing in infrastructure. We're a movement of a free and open internet. That's what we're all about. We're not about the letter next to your name. Mm-hmm. We're not about, like maintaining any type of status quo, because we realize that the status quo is broken.
Right.
So we don't have an allegiance to the DNC. We don't have an allegiance to the GOP, obviously. Yeah. We don't have an allegiance to any of that stuff. We have an allegiance to the causes that we know will put this country in a better direction. So, we just got to stick to that.
Yeah, it's going to happen. We're building a new status quo that's inclusive, mm-hmm. And that will actually affect change. So, Ron, before we go, can you just tell everybody where to find you online?
Yes. You can find me at www.bestsoundboardplacingintheworld.com.
It lasted.
We got one. 1 out of 4 ain't bad. You can find me, follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone. RonPlacone.com is my website. My podcast is called Five Chords in the Truth, the number 5 chords in the truth. And, of course, you can catch me over on the Establishment Exiles and the Jimmy Dore Show.
All right. Well, you guys, hopefully you enjoyed that. I wish you could have seen our older chat as well, but hey, it is what it is. So, we'll catch you guys later.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.